This is Assistant Curator William Bellamy. Yesterday, I received a donation of a new artifact, which was assigned the reference number 42784 in our collection. There was no return address on the package and no information in the crate, just the artifact. It is a rather strange-looking idol. It vaguely represents a humanoid figure, though I don't quite recognize exactly what is it trying to replicate. It is made from stone as well that I don't quite know its origin. The stone is mostly obsidian in nature, but there are purple hues that can be seen in certain lighting. It stands about, about 1.5 feet off the ground, sort of comparable to a desk lamp. I'm starting this record because the whole situation is making me a little uneasy. Last night I had vivid, unsettling dreams, and the artifact was in them. I'm a person of science, but I can't help but think there is something off about this object. The others in my office don't agree that there is anything strange about it, and I've had no luck convincing them either. At the end of day one with this object, I couldn't find out anything about its history or provenance. It doesn't seem quite like anything I've seen before. I'm reminded of that one time when we were sent a historical weapon that had recently been used in a murder, and the murderer was hoping that it would get buried in our archives. Whatever it is, the artifact doesn't really fit in our collection at all. I'm going to try and learn more about it and then dispose of it, either to the authorities or to a museum where it will be a better fit. This is Assistant Curator William Bellamy, Day 2 of working with artifact number 42784. As mentioned before, I've not been having great dreams since working with the artifact. However, I briefly fell asleep yesterday while sitting at my desk, and my dreams were surprisingly peaceful and serene. I dreamt about spending time in the countryside at my family's cabin up in the woods. It is a place that brings me comfort and joy, being out in nature, away from the busy and congested city that I live in. It was nice. However, when I awoke that morning, my room looked like as if a large windstorm had taken place, as my documents were scattered all over the place, as well as some knickknacks that I have collected over the years. A lamp of mine was broken on the floor, and my bedding was tossed to the opposite side of the room. I have never been known to sleepwalk in the past, but it seems, as the evidence would present, that perhaps this night was a first. I tried reaching out to my sister Martha about the artifact, and after a long talk and explaining of the dreams that I have been having recently, she, called me a bit mad and said that I'd been working too much and I needed a break. Perhaps taking advice from my most recent dream, some time outdoors would do me some good. After that, we went our separate ways, and, still having my experience on my mind, I decided to reach out to a friend of mine, Mickey Henderson. I told him about the artifact and the fact that I've been having these strange dreams, and, they met me not so much criticism as my sister had, but a vague understanding. They are a recovering alcoholic, and they have had dreams where terrible things have happened to them, though their advice I'm not quite sure I can follow, as I need to continue studying this artifact, and it is not as easy as just giving up the drink. And curiously, in both conversations, the phrase of live or let die kept appearing in our conversations. It stood out to me only because in my dream, I remember the phrase being mentioned by some person, a familiar voice that I could not see, but I don't know. Perhaps I am thinking too much into all of this. I think perhaps maybe I should try a glass of wine before bed. That could potentially help me sleep better. In any case, that is all for today. I will continue my studies in the morning. This is Assistant Curator William Bellamy, Day 3 of working with artifact 42784. I've not made much progress in my investigation. However, I did have yet another strange dream that kind of unsettled me. I was flying in my dream this time, above a turbulent sea, approaching, approaching the city I live in, though strangely the city did not look exactly the way that one would picture it looking from a bird's eye view. It seemed to be slanted, as if the buildings were not firmly placed in a sturdy foundation. They all seemed to be bending in odd directions. The sky was especially gray, and now that I think about it, just about everything was gray. It's as if the dream was in black and white. As I flew over the city, I started to descend, not at a rapid pace, but more of an even decline, and as I began making it closer and closer to the ground, I realized there was no stopping, and ultimately, I believe I must have hit the ground, because at that moment I woke up. Thankfully, my room was not in such a disarray as it was the previous night, but still I feel as if I did not receive the rest that I needed, and, well, I don't know if it was the wine, but maybe more wine will help remedy this situation. Willing to try anything at this point. This is Assistant Curator William Bellamy, Day 4 of working with artifact number 42784. Something about the artifact changed while I was on lunch break today. I swear it changed because I did not recall it having defined eyes. As mentioned previously, the artifact was kind of a nondescript looking humanoid figure. However, as I re-examined it after my lunch break today, it seemed like its eyes had been carved into them. I distinctly remember them not being there before, and, well, suddenly they were there this afternoon. Perhaps the lack of sleep is getting to me. I don't think that such a detail could have been missed on my initial inspection. Perhaps I am just not remembering things correctly. My memory has been a bit off since, well, the bad dreams have started, so I'm going to go with that explanation for the time being. This is Assistant Curator William Bellamy, Day 6 of working with artifact number 42784. I'm still not sleeping well. It is really starting to drain on me. Last night I had dreamt I was somewhere alone with the artifact. I believe we were in some sort of, I don't know, labyrinth? I just remember there being lots of walls around us and two passages that seemed to turn into even more walled structures, like a hallway with a corner immediately upon exit. There was no roof over us, just a sky of swirling dark clouds. Extremely dark, in fact. They were almost black, as if they were made of ink. I tried escaping, however, every time I went out one of the exits, I came back into the room through the other side. No matter how many times I went in this circle, I did not see any new paths or any way out. However, each time I entered the room again, the artifact seemed to have grown in size. By the third attempt, this artifact was about my height. I myself am about 5'8", and as I originally described the artifact, it was only about 1.5 feet off the ground. This is a dream, of course, so things don't quite make sense, and I did not expect them to. However, the presence of something ancient and powerful, and extremely malevolent, continued to grow as I exited and entered the room each time. Looking back up at the sky, well, rather than dark clouds, the faces of, I cannot really describe it, lizard-looking reptilian creatures, gigantic in size, bigger than any building, were starting to form. Needless to say, I was quite scared, and I decided to sit in the room with the artifact and hoping that by staying put the situation would not get worse. Though it seems like logic does not exist in the dream realm, as that was not the case. The figures in the sky continued to grow and get ever closer to myself. There was no respite from their advance, and I sat there in terror, absolute terror, as they began to envelop me slowly, before ultimately waking back up. These dreams are taking a toll on my psyche. I'm not sure what options are available to me, but I just don't know what to do right now. I just don't know. This is Assistant Curator William Bellamy, Day 7, working with artifact 42784. I, for once, did not have any dreams that I could recall, at least, but Nonetheless, I'm still not quite fully rested, I feel. In my studies of the artifact, I noticed that it has seen some deterioration or aged somewhat since I last looked at it. It is, well, a couple of cracks have been discovered, and it seems to be quite worn on one side of it. Perhaps it needs to be kept in a humid environment. I'm moving it to the museum's humidor to hopefully preserve the artifact so it doesn't further deteriorate. It is quite odd that all of a sudden it would change in form so drastically. I asked my colleagues if they had interacted with the artifact, and none of them have said they've even touched it since, well, it first came to the museum about 7 days ago. The material still feels like stone, though for stone to simply fall apart in such a manner at such a quick pace, I'm not quite sure if it is in fact made of stone. Perhaps it is some other material. This is Assistant Curator William Bellamy, Day 8, working with Artifact 42784. Once more, I've had a rather nasty dream. I was in a very familiar room from my childhood. It was in the cabin that my family owns upstate. It was the bedroom that I shared with my sister. But several things were terribly wrong with the room. It seemed that, well, it seemed like it had gone through a fire. Things were burnt and destroyed. The doll collection that my sister brought with her was present in this dream, though the faces of the dolls were all melted and very deformed. It was quite odd. Some seemed to even have human-esque eyes that were dripping from their faces, and needless to say, it was very disturbing, and as I woke up, I was drenched in sweat. I'm thinking maybe the wine is exacerbating my dreams and making them far more vivid and worse for wear than I intended. I'm going to stop drinking the wine at night in the hopes that the situation will improve as the week goes on. This is Assistant Curator William Bellamy, Day 9 of working with Artifact 42784. A terrible misfortune has befallen me. My dear friend Mickey has passed away. It seems that they had a heart attack in their sleep last night, and well, curiously, I actually had a dream about Mickey. In my dream, we were, and by we, I mean my family, my sister was there, mother and father were there as well. We were all sitting in the parlor, and Mickey was there as well. Everybody was smiling. All of them were staring at me and just smiling. Then, all of a sudden, Mickey stood up, grabbed a gun from their pocket, and shot himself in the head. Blood splattered on the rest of my family, and they seemed like they did not even notice what had happened. They maintained their gaze upon me and just kept smiling. Someone at work made a joke this morning, and I was in a rather dour mood. I suppose they were trying to cheer me up, but I did not expect the reaction that I had. The joke had me laughing hysterically. I even fell to the floor in my laughter. I could not compose myself no matter what I tried to do. It seemed like the funniest thing I had ever heard, and well, as like my dream, all the figures in the room were staring at me, though they were not smiling. They looked as if they had witnessed something shocking. From the manner that I was conducting myself, I don't blame them for their expressions. I did my best to crawl out of the room and try and calm myself down. My colleagues have all gone to, well, avoiding me now. I suppose my outburst was quite disturbing for them to witness, and quite disturbing for myself to experience. These dreams, the lack of sleep is definitely getting to me. I just don't know what to do about it. Perhaps I should go see a doctor. I don't know. I'm afraid to go to sleep, actually. I don't want to have any more of these terrible dreams. I don't know. I just don't know. I don't know what I'm going to do. I don't know. This is Assistant Curator William Bellamy, Day 10 of working with Artifact 42784. As I'm sure it comes to no surprise, I've been dreaming again. Last night, my dreams opened up with me in a hallway full of mirrors. I was walking down this hallway, and as I looked into each mirror, my face slowly began to distort, turning into something unnatural. I was becoming more reptilian in a way. My eyes drooped out of my head, and, well, maybe about the fourth mirror in, they were just empty sockets. But in a few more mirrors, I developed bright yellow eyes, kind of like that of a cat, with a stripe down the middle. Then my skin began to turn gray, and the hair upon my head began to fall out. And finally, I had reached the end of the hallway, and once more my friends and family were there at a holiday event. They seemed to pay no mind to my appearance, and, well, even Mickey was there, and he was in great spirits. Then I heard a familiar crying. It kind of sounded like my fiancée, Tiffany, though I could not locate her anywhere. I searched the entire house, but, well, I woke up before I was able to find her. That morning I decided to call Tiffany, and, well, we met over some coffee at a cafe not too far from her house, and I explained to her basically what has been going on with me, with the artifact and the strange dreams I've been having. She seemed to believe everything that I was saying, the strange occurrences, the relationship between my dreams and what happened to Mickey, and it felt really nice to hear somebody finally agree with me, to feel like somebody understood me. Though, I can't help feel that maybe she wasn't sincere and was just maybe humoring me. No, Tiffany would never do that. I would give that woman my soul, and I'm sure she would do the same for me. She would not... Yes, of course, I believe she firmly believes in me as well. Today, in my actual studies of the artifact, well, I've been zoning out while staring at it. I've caught myself not too long ago staring at it for well over 20 minutes. I feel as if there's something with this artifact that the choices in my life have brought me to it. Of all the places for this thing to end up, it ended up here, where I work. I've spent many years studying ancient artifacts from both Mayan civilizations to those found in the Far East. While this particular artifact does not resemble anything of those cultures, at the same time, there is a familiarity about it that does seem to share some small aspects of them. I can't help feel, as I've said, I still can't help feel that perhaps I was meant to uncover what exactly this artifact is. It has obviously been on my mind for the last 10 or so days. Perhaps I'm getting closer to truly uncovering its nature. This is Assistant Curator William Bellamy, Day 11, working with artifact number 42784. Now that number is interesting. I decided to do some more research on that number. It doesn't really make sense why I would do such a thing, as we catalog all the artifacts that we receive. However, something about it was sticking out in my mind, and after doing some cross-checking on some maps, I discovered that the number in question could be interpreted as coordinates, and interestingly, they actually center right where my house is located. Needless to say, that, well, was quite the revelation. A man of science that I am believes that this is merely a coincidence, but still, it is quite a coincidence with everything that has been happening that this artifact would end up being exactly where it needed to be in my possession. I don't know what to make of this. It feels like maybe this is a sign that it was meant to be in my hands. I don't know. Very strange indeed. This morning I had awoken for the day. If I had a dream, I don't remember it, but my eyesight was definitely blurry and distorted. I don't know what was going on. I nearly forgot to bring my badge with me this morning. As I was brushing my teeth, I suddenly saw something. Briefly, it felt like, in the distance behind me. It kind of looked like how my reflection did at the very end of that hallway of mirrors in my dream the previous night. The almost reptilian version of myself. It gave me quite the jolt, and I quickly left and headed toward the local cafe to get a drink on my way to work. The barista whom I casually talked to She asked what I was working on. Frankly, I did not tell her about the artifact. I'm starting to think the more people I tell about it, well, the more risk of it being taken away I feel is present. There's something to this artifact that is very special, and I don't want anybody to think that it's worth more to them than it is to me. It is definitely worth a lot to me, and I don't want anybody else getting their grubby hands on it. That being said, I was forced to bring the artifact to a meeting today with some of my colleagues. Strangely, as they began talking about the artifact, perhaps it was related to my earlier distorted vision, they began speaking in a language that I could not quite understand. It definitely did not sound like English, and nothing else that I could recall, not German, not Spanish, not even Chinese, which I'm semi-fluent in. It sounded like something I've never heard before, guttural and babbling, almost as if speaking in tongues. They took notice of my apparent confusion, and I grabbed the artifact and decided to flee the room. I don't know exactly what their conversation was, but obviously if they were speaking in front of me in a language I did not understand, they must have had their eyes set on taking the artifact from me. I got out of there, did not look back. I have decided to take the artifact home with me to further study it in my own private quarters. I feel that this is the best course of action to fully understanding its true nature. This is Assistant Curator William Bellamy. Day 12, working with artifact number 42784. I had yet another dream last night. This one much more disturbing than some of the others. I was wearing a robe and holding a knife in my dream. The artifact was on an altar before me, and so was an unconscious person. That unconscious person was Tiffany. In my studies of ancient cultures, this was textbook of a sacrifice. I don't recall if Tiffany was hurt in the dream, but I definitely had the intention of hurting her from what I could remember. I then shifted while looking at the artifact, and I was suddenly back at my desk, though I was looking at myself through the eyes of Tiffany herself. I could not help but feel extreme disgust as I stared at myself from her point of view. I don't quite know why I was so revolted by my appearance. I wonder, is this how Tiffany sees me in real life? I don't know. That day, this afternoon I should say, I touched the artifact, and surprisingly it was extremely cold, almost if I was touching an ice cube, though if I might say it was even colder than that. My fingers got stuck to it briefly, and I tried to pull them off. It didn't come off easily. I lost some skin in the process. I went to the bathroom to go and get a bandage, but as I returned I noticed that the skin that had peeled from my fingers were no longer to be found on the artifact, or anywhere around it, for that matter. Very curious indeed. Further attempts to try and examine the artifact revealed that it was no longer cold, but standard room temperature. Very, very odd indeed. Perhaps I was... No, I have the marks to confirm that I actually did hurt myself, but there is no reasonable explanation for why this would have happened. In fact, I recall it being very warm today. This is day 13, William Bellamy, with artifact 42784. I decided to take a walk to clear my head today. It was my favorite kind of weather outside. It was not too warm, the sun was shining, and it felt great to be outside again. Though quickly I noticed that my back has been aching. My walk was cut tragically short, as it felt like I could no longer stand up straight. I was hunched and quickly made it back to my apartment. As I came back into the apartment, the artifact was there on my nightstand. I do not recall leaving it there the night before. I stared at it, and I could not help but feel as if it was staring back at me. That same inky cloud that I had experienced in one of my dreams seemed to start to form in the corners of my eyes the longer I stared at it, and I could have swear it whispered something to me. A short phrase. It said, "Time draws near. I distinctly remember it saying, "Time draws near." I... My imagination, I'm sure. This, been a stressful day. My back continued to hurt. I decided to return back to the museum and collect some papers, and, well, I got into a large disagreement with one of my colleagues. It was a young university student, an intern, who disagreed with my taking the artifact home. He felt as if it needed to be in the museum so that it can be correctly put in its place, catalogued and filed away. I told him no, it needs more study. I have not yet discerned exactly what its nature is, and I desperately needed to continue my studies, and his disagreement angered me like, well, nothing I've ever experienced before. I was furious with rage. I came very close to striking the boy. Rather, I was able to compose myself, and I simply asked him to pack up his things and leave, and to never return to the museum again. Ugh, my back is killing me. I'm going to lay down. I don't... It's perhaps from this lack of sleep. But, yes, some good rest would be welcomed. Good rest, if it's even possible at this point, but we'll see. Day 14, with artifact of it had told me that they were coming for me. Tiffany, my fiancée, sensing something off about me, I suppose, threw away the artifact. In a rage, I hurt her. At least, I think I did. I'm not quite sure if I was dreaming or not. When I had woken, it was there on my nightstand, but Tiffany was not anywhere to be found. Though blood was on the floor. I fear it has taken hold of me. I know its name now. Karl. It wants me to leave here. It tells me to go towards the sea. The sky is dark and clouds are beginning to form. I feel as if I need to take this artifact to the sea. If only to see it from a scientific point of view, if this will result in anything. Yes. Yes, this is what I must do. This is what I must do.